second day, England 239 for 6, 127 runs behind after Pakistan were bowled out for 366. Jack Leach finished with 4 for 114, but a real shout out for the quick bowlers. Matthew Potts 2 for 66 and Bryden Cast 3 for 50 from 20 overs. They did a terrific job, a containing job as well as taking wickets. And they managed to chip their way through that Pakistan batting line-up. Crawley and Duckett put on 73 for the first wicket. Crawley was out for 27, and then Pope made 29. He was bowled a big spinner through the gate by Sajid. That was 125 for 2. They got up to 211, with Joe Root playing nicely for 34. And terrific innings from Ben Duckett, sweeping, reverse sweeping, orthodox sweeping, just playing off the back foot so cleverly. But Root was a bit unlucky. He was looking to hit the off-spinner Sajid away into the leg side. The ball kept low, hit the bottom of the bat, and then rolled into his boot and then to his stumps. He was out for 34, and it precipitated this collapse of 4 for 14 from 18 balls. Root out for 34, Duckett 114, Brook 9 was bowled by Sajid. Stokes popped a catch-up. It's a short leg off Noman, the left-arm spinner, for 1. All the big guns gone there, really, in the twinkle of an eye. And suddenly Pakistan right on top. And Smith and Cast were left to see out that last 15, 20 minutes or so of play under a lot of pressure. That lead, 127, it feels more like 227 really in these conditions, as Steve Finn alongside me. Well, it's a gripping day's cricket, isn't it? When the ball is not dominating necessarily, but when it makes batting that bit awkward and when it makes the value of every run so crucial, it's a much better game.
When there's jeopardy, the game is far more interesting.
Yeah.
And it's been a captivating day's Test cricket, actually, right from the very beginning, when the seamers were bowling that reverse swing, Bryden Cast getting some early joy this morning. All the way through the day, there's been captivating, gripping passages of play. And it's that jeopardy that just keeps you interested whilst you're watching all day long. And that last little bit of play there with fielders around the bat, the ball's spitting a bit, you have to be so precise as a batter. If you make a mistake like Harry Brookback, go back and play with an open gate. There's the jeopardy of that ball going through the gate and hitting the stumps. So it was really fascinating Test cricket, and unfortunately for England, at the end of the day, they feel a long way behind the game.
Well, they do, and it was interesting in the last few minutes there that I was commentating, so you look at the field very closely. Actually, Shah Masood could have been much more attacking, I felt, with the field around the bat and putting pressure on Smith and Cast, but actually he's mindful of the runs as well. Deep mid wicket, put out, deep point, only a short leg and a slip. That he knows the value of every run himself, and he wants his lead to be as big as possible.
Yeah, and probably still a team a touch low on confidence, having thrown away winning positions in games that they found themselves recently. They're probably really mindful and wary, actually, of throwing this one away here. So, having those boundary riders out late in the day, I felt was a bit of a negative move. I mean, they had a great last session there, Pakistan, and taking those wickets has put them well ahead of the game. But a confident team there, and if the positions were flipped in the game and we'd have seen England there this evening, I think you'd have had 5 or 6 people around the bat there trying to just snaffle and trying to really suffocate the batters. So England will know that they'll come back tomorrow, and yes, they are behind the game because of that burst of wickets through the middle of that session there. But if they can eke their way up within 40 or 50 runs of Pakistan, the pressure is then all on Pakistan in that third innings to decide how they want to play and how they want to put themselves a score on the board they feel is defendable. Yeah,
40 or 50 seems
a long way off.
It does seem a long way off. I'm thinking that a lead of 80.
That's 47 more runs, isn't it?
It just feels even what's to come as Jack Leach, Potts, Leach and Bashir.
Yeah, bulk of the work's going to have to be done by these two, Smith and Cast, and then Potts, who scored a first-class 100 this year for Durham. But certainly the bulk of those runs is going to have to come from then. It was almost as though at tea someone just pressed a button and the pitch started spitting from slightly straighter. I think we've seen it spin out of the footholes a touch throughout the game, but from that straight line for any type of spin, whether that's wrist spin or slow left arm or off spin, it has felt as though it's had to be wide to get the kick out of the footholes. But for some reason during that final session there, the spin just happened from that touch straighter, which caused problems for all the batters.
What do you make of Sajid Khan? He looks
I love him. I want him to play every test for Pakistan.
Handlebar moustache. He's taken 4 for 86 in all. But Andy, what was his little killer spell there?
Well, he had 3 for 6 in 10 balls in his 14th and 15th over. And what an extraordinary stat. He bowled out Pope, Root and Brooke. Not all in that spell, but numbers 3, 4 and 5. Only the 12th time in Test history that one bowler has bowled out a team's numbers 3, 4 and 5. And only the second time a spinner has done it. Derek Underwood was the other against New Zealand in 1971. It's only the second such instance since 1986 by any bowler.
Well, that is remarkable, but he's in your face, isn't he?
Yes, we had that attitude even when he was getting whacked around all over the place.
Yes.
He was creating some degree of theatre.
But spinners can be quite. I mean, I remember Phil Tufnell always saying, "Oh, as a spinner, you've got to have a bit about you.
Yeah.
You can't just lob the ball up and smack it. You've got to have a bit of fight about you." And he's got that. He looks him in the eye. He glares over his shoulder at the batsman when he's walking back to his mark.
He thinks everything's out that hits the pad.
But he also bowls nicely. And look at the variety. He bowled a beautiful slower ball at cast that almost got through, the tail ender and so on. The fella can bowl.
Yep, he was catching very good players on the crease. He caught Root on the crease, which rarely happens actually for an off-spinner. Root is usually so astute at being able to get forward and smother the length, or to get right out and sweep it, or go right back on his stumps and play with a tight bat and pad, so there's no gap to get through. But there was just something about the drift and the way that he was bowling that ball this evening that was causing really good players to have indecision. It was a good spell, and he certainly created that theatre.
I gave a big shout out to England's seamers, and we wondered how Pakistan might fare actually. But the ball has spun at a good time for them actually, isn't it? So only having one quick bowler, but didn't Potts and Cast run in well? I mean, they really did, and okay, they got 5 wickets between them. But it was more than that as well. I mean, they were very containing. They put pressure on the Pakistan batsmen. I thought, on a pitch in which a fast bowler would go to an absolute graveyard for me, they kept running in.
Yeah, we had that nice chat with Marcus North, didn't we, earlier today, and the development of Durham seamers. And whenever I've played against Durham, you just get the feeling that they're always at you. And clearly Ben Stokes being captain for England and then taking that attitude to Durham would have helped those two guys' developments over the last couple of years, and I thought they did a really, really good job. You do worry for Pakistan if they'd have lost the toss and been asked to bowl first. You wonder what that first innings would have looked like with that little spin off the middle of the pitch, but they didn't. They won the toss. They've done exactly what they wanted to do, and those two seamers offered control and potency, which is very difficult to do in these conditions. So yeah, big hats off to them.
I mean, there will be people who will say, "Oh, this isn't a test pitch," and you're juggling from hand to hand, aren't you? These absolute roads that you see. So that last pitch, it really didn't give anything to anybody. It was as much a psychological win by England there, putting a pretty deflated Pakistan team under pressure. Scoring all those runs, and so they've done this unprecedented move of playing again. And this is actually sort of the 7th day on this pitch, which has clearly been tickled up a bit between matches as well. It's been scarified and grass has been taken off. But but what do you think? I mean, you come to the subcontinent, you expect to see it's not dangerous.
No,
it's not. Batting is not impossible, or at least it isn't at the moment. Whether it becomes more and more difficult, of course, time will tell. And it's interesting that England put the light roller on at the start of their innings. I'm not sure why they bothered putting anything on, really, but they did not put the heavy roller on in case they wanted to unsettle the cracks and so on. But, I mean, would you rather see matches played like this rather than on a flat thing?
Absolutely. This has been fascinating Test cricket for the last 48 hours because of what the pitch is offering and the conversations around the pitch. Clearly, using a pitch 2 games in a row and roughing it up or whatever is not the ideal way to produce that. But I would much prefer this pitch than the one that we saw last week in that first Test match, definitely.
Let's get the thoughts now of Ben Duckett. He played brilliantly today, and he's been talking to Simon Mann.
Well, Ben, it was a fascinating day to watch. How do you see the state of the game at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that those few wickets at the back end weren't ideal for us, and obviously for myself I'd love to be walking out there tomorrow, but whatever the state of the game, we always believe we can go and win the game. So first session tomorrow, I think it's going to be huge for us. If we can bat for as much as we can and try and get as close to their total, I think we'll actually be favourites. We'll certainly believe that. I think they've shown this game, with the bat and the ball, that they're going to fight every single ball right till the end of the game and try and make it as hard as they can for us. So, we'll always keep believing. I think, they've had a good day today. But yeah, as I say, that first morning session is going to be huge.
Seems a strange question to be asking a man who's just made 100, but how tricky is it batting out there?
Yeah, I think obviously it's going to be tricky for the guys starting. It certainly spun more and more throughout the day. The older the ball got, it seemed like it spun more and more. I think we can use that to our advantage when we bowl at them in their second innings. Really try and take wickets in clusters.
Such an incredible innings, given the conditions. To score 114 out of that 239 for 6, and to play as he did, obviously, as we knew, relying a lot on the sweep and the reverse sweep. But, what an eye for a start.
Yeah, remarkable.
Yeah.
And his ability to be able to decipher between what needed to be knocked into the gaps and then what needed to be swept, I think was the most impressive thing. And when he's playing those sweeps, when you saw Root and Duckett, actually Joe Root got out under edging one where his bat chopped down on the ball a touch from high to low, trying to sweep it out towards the leg side, whereas Ben Duckett, because he's that little bit shorter and he gets a really wide stance for a small man, and he gets that bat parallel to the ground. And when you're sweeping with the ball parallel to the ground, you're giving yourself a much better opportunity to hit it with the full face of the bat. You're not relying on perfect timing to hit it out to the boundary. And it's a real sign of those sweep shots, his ability to hit it both in front and behind square, to manipulate that field, and also to do it with the reverse sweep as well, in front and behind square. And then in between that, it wasn't like he was blindly just sweeping every single ball. He was knocking it into the gap. He was advancing down the pitch and just tickling it round the corner into the vacant square leg for a single. It showed real maturity, actually, and it was a brilliant innings.
Yeah.
Well, just on those sweep stats, the CricViz data shows that if you combine his sweeps, reverse sweeps, and a couple of scoop shots, 52 runs of his first 100 in sweeps and scoops, 10 fours, and that's the most any player has scored with those shots at the time that they've reached their century. It was his fourth Test 100, 120 balls, the slowest of his 4, but still the 8th quickest by an England opener. So he announced 4 of the 8 fastest hundreds by England
On a
openers.
pitch like that, I guess a pretty reasonable attack too. It's remarkable that an opener. You always think, opening batsmen don't play much spin, and therefore aren't any good at it. But that an opening batsman should be so adept at playing spin.
Well, I think he started life in the middle order, and he has played middle order roles. I think in white ball cricket as well, you have to be able to manipulate the strike using your feet and using those sweep shots. And his size actually, I think, makes a massive difference in his ability to pick up the line and length of spin and decide whether to get right out to the pitch of it or whether to get down and sweep it. So it's that decision making in the split second that comes with a lot of practice and a lot of natural ability as well.
Pope bowled through the gate. If you want to be really picky, you could say, well, where was that front pad? Because it was actually quite a big distance away from where the ball pitched to an off spinner.
It was the first ball. I think that was the first ball that we really saw
spin,
massively grip and spin like that. Yeah. So I can forgive him that. And at that stage, I think England found themselves in a really good position. He had been tied down a little bit by the left arm spinner, and then he'd got a cutaway and then hit 2 boundaries in the next over, and he'd have felt as though he was off and running and his innings was underway and that he could trust the pitch. And I think that just checked his advances.
Yeah. What about Brook? He got off the mark. I thought it was a bit of a sharp intake of breath, actually. I was commentating at the time. Ooh, didn't like that very much. He played against the spin on the back foot to an off spinner. He got a single out the offside. He played a beautiful cover drive, but then on the back foot again and dismissed. I don't know how much spin bowling like this he's faced in his life, but it's going to be a bit of an education, maybe.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that really good players learn from.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm sure early in Joe Root's career, or all great players' careers, they'd have fallen foul to seeing a ball short outside off stump and thinking, I'll just nudge that through the covers. And before you know it, in conditions like this, where that ball is sharply turning, it's as back through your gate and it's bowled you. So, yeah, he strikes me as someone who learns very quickly, actually.
Yes.
He'll be sat in the dressing room probably analysing and watching his feet movement, having come off the back of a 300 last week where he would have fully trusted every single decision that he'd have made. I think he'll learn a lot from that shot and from that dismissal, and it wouldn't surprise me, actually. Really good players don't like getting out the same way twice in a test match. The really great players I've played with have had that attitude. So whether he'll go across and bat on off stump and try and get outside the line, not to leave that big gap in between bat and pad like he did there.
Really interesting. I mean, tomorrow, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? It feels as if Pakistan will end up with a lead. They're 127 to the good at the moment. This is the partnership you feel that could chip away at that and get it down to 70 or 80. I mean, we're guessing, but it does. I mean, whereas yesterday at this time we were saying, England might just be slightly nose ahead because they kept it tight. There's no doubt who's in the box seat now. No,
and even at tea, actually, I'd have said England miles in the box seat. Pakistan, their fields aren't aggressive, the lines they're bowling aren't aggressive, but it felt as though they were just biding their time to get to that point. So tomorrow morning, that first half an hour is going to be vitally important. If England can just suck a little bit of the wind out of Pakistan's sails in that first half an hour, accumulate a few runs, leave some gaps actually there in the outfield for them to be able to rotate the strike and move that scoreboard forward, then they can have dreams of getting somewhere close to 50 runs behind. But they'll be dreaming of that this evening. That first half an hour is vital.